Have you ever felt that, despite being surrounded by people, there is an inexplicable emptiness inside you? A space that nothing seems to fill, no matter how hard you try with achievements, relationships, or material possessions. This void is no coincidence. Carl Jung, one of the most revolutionary thinkers in modern psychology, described it as the call of the soul, an invitation to discover the light that exists in your own darkness. Today, we will embark on a transformative journey, a journey through the depths of your being, where, according to Jung, lies the true spirituality that can heal your oldest wounds. I'm not talking about institutionalized religion, but about this intimate connection with what Jung called the self. This totality that transcends the ego and connects us with something much greater. Every day, thousands of people look outside themselves for answers, consult experts, read self-help books, follow gurus and spiritual trends. But Jung discovered something revolutionary. True spiritual healing begins when you dare to look within, especially those parts you have kept in the shadows. For Jung, spirituality was not an escape from reality, but a deep encounter with it, with all of it, including the parts that hurt, that shame, that you would rather forget. Because it is precisely there, in that personal darkness, where the seed of your most authentic light is hidden. Think for a moment. How many times have you avoided feeling painful emotions? How many times have you repressed parts of yourself that you consider unacceptable? We all do this. We construct a mask, what Jung called the persona, to function socially. But as this mask solidifies, we lose touch with our essence. And it is in this distance where our deepest wounds are born. Modern society constantly pushes you out. It says that happiness lies in the next achievement, the next purchase, the next relationship. But Jung, ahead of his time, warned about the danger of this perpetual external search. He understood that we are experiencing a collective spiritual crisis, where the connection with our inner dimension has weakened dangerously. This disconnect is not trivial. According to Jung, it is the root of much of our contemporary suffering. Anxiety, depression, addictions, destructive relationships. All of these, he said, are symptoms of a soul disconnected from its source, from its own inner light. They are the cry of that part of us that longs for wholeness, that seeks to reconcile light and dark into a coherent whole. The first step to spiritual healing, according to Jung, is to recognize and accept your shadow. The shadow is not something evil as many believe. It's simply the set of aspects of yourself that you've repressed, denied, or rejected because they didn't fit with the image you wanted to project. It can include your fears, your impulses that you consider unacceptable, your weaknesses, and even talents and strengths that you have never allowed yourself to express. When you deny your shadow, you are rejecting an essential part of yourself. It's like trying to light a room while blocking half the windows. The light cannot fully enter and you cannot access all of your life energy. Jung discovered that this rejection consumes an immense amount of psychic energy. Energy you could be using to create, to love, to live fully. Have you ever noticed that often what irritates you most in other people are precisely those traits that you deny in yourself? Jung called this projection. Your unconscious mind, in an attempt to protect you, to see your own shadows, projects them outward, seeing them clearly in others, but remaining blind to them in yourself. It's a fascinating mechanism and, once you recognize it, deeply revealing. The good news is that not only negative aspects live in the shadows. Jung discovered that often our most precious gifts, our most authentic talents, are also hidden there. Maybe because at some point in your life expressing them made you feel vulnerable, or because someone important disapproved of that part of you. And so, along with the fears and wounds, you also buried treasures. Imagine if you could recover all that energy you invest in keeping your shadow repressed. Imagine being able to integrate these rejected aspects and discover the gifts hidden within them. According to Jung, this integration is precisely the path to totality, to what he called individuation, the process of becoming a complete, authentic being, reconciled with oneself. This process of individuation is deeply spiritual, not in a dogmatic or religious sense, but in the broader sense of connecting with something that transcends the ego. For Jung, the collective unconscious, this dimension of the psyche that all human beings share and which contains universal archetypes, is the bridge to an authentic spiritual experience. Have you ever had a dream that seemed to contain wisdom beyond your personal experience? Have you ever felt a synchronicity, a meaningful coincidence that seemed to whisper an important message? According to Jung, these are moments when the collective unconscious is communicating with you. Moments in which the spiritual dimension of existence is present in your daily life. Archetypes, these primordial images that appear in myths, dreams, and cultural expressions from all times and places, are, for Jung, manifestations of this transpersonal intelligence. The hero, the mother, the sage, the shadow, the self. Each represents an aspect of the universal human experience, and each has a role in your process of integration and healing. One of the most relevant archetypes on the path of spiritual healing is that of the wounded. Jung understood that our wounds, far from being just obstacles, can become doors to deeper awareness. He is what would later be known as the wounded healer. The idea that our own wounds, once recognized and accepted, become the source of our ability to heal and help others. What are your deepest wounds? Take a moment to recognize them. Maybe it's an early rejection, a betrayal you never got over, a loss that left a void seemingly impossible to fill. Jung would invite you to look at these wounds not as enemies to overcome, but as teachers who came to teach you something essential about yourself and about life. Unhealed wounds turn into what Jung called complexes, knots of psychic energy, charged with emotion that, from the unconscious, influence our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. A complex is like an automatic program that activates when faced with certain triggers and makes you react in ways that you later don't understand. Have you ever found yourself reacting disproportionately to seemingly trivial situations? Have you ever wondered why certain people or events affect you so much? According to Jung, these are moments when a complex has been activated, and instead of judging yourself by your reaction, you could use this experience as an opportunity to discover what old wound is asking to be recognized and healed. Jungian spirituality does not seek to eliminate these complexes, which would be impossible, but to consciously integrate them. It is about recognizing your existence, understanding your origin, and little by little transforming your energy from destructive to constructive. This process is neither quick nor simple, but according to Jung, it is the only path to true inner freedom. The central concept in Jung's psychology is that of synchronicity, significant coincidences that cannot be explained by normal causality, but that suggest a deeper order in the universe. Jung saw in synchronicity a manifestation of the connection between the psyche and the material world, a kind of connecting causality that transcends our rational understanding. Have you experienced any surprising synchronicities? Maybe you thought of someone and received their call at that moment. Maybe you needed an urgent answer and found a book open exactly on the page that contained that answer. According to Jung, these events are not mere coincidences, but moments in which the veil between consciousness and the collective unconscious becomes thinner, allowing a glimpse of a deeper order in reality. This perspective is deeply spiritual, as it suggests that we live in a universe that responds not only to physical laws but also to psychic needs. A universe where matter and mind are not separate, but form part of the same interconnected reality. Jung called this the one world, the fundamental unity of all existence. Now, as all of this translates into your personal path of spiritual healing, how can you apply these profound Jungian ideas to your concrete wounds, to your everyday struggles? The first step is always awareness. You cannot transform what you do not recognize. Jung insisted on the importance of developing a conscious relationship with your unconscious, and to this end he recommended practices such as paying attention to dreams, active imagination, and various forms of symbolic expression, such as drawing, writing, or movement. The dreams were, for Jung, the via Rio unconscious, the most direct way to communicate with those parts of you that cannot express themselves through rational language. If you want to begin a Jungian healing journey, starting to remember and work with your dreams is a powerful practice. No need for complicated interpretations. Simply ask yourself, what is this dream telling me about myself that I may not be consciously seeing? Active imagination is another fundamental Jungian technique. It involves entering a state of conscious relaxation and allowing images, characters, or scenarios to emerge spontaneously, and then interacting with them deliberately. It's like a dialogue with the unconscious, a way of building bridges between the conscious mind and those aspects of yourself that normally remain hidden. Have you ever noticed how certain images or symbols move you deeply without you being able to rationally explain why? Jung discovered that symbols are the natural language of the unconscious. Unlike signs that have a univocal meaning, symbols contain multiple levels of meaning and speak directly to the soul. Therefore, working with symbols, whether through art, rituals, or contemplation, is a powerful path to spiritual healing. A revolutionary discovery by Jung was that the psyche naturally tends towards totality, towards the integration of all its aspects into a coherent unity. He called this innate tendency the transcendent function, the ability of the psyche to transcend internal divisions and create a new, more complete synthesis. This means that on a deep level, your psyche already knows how to heal itself. Your job is not to force healing, but to create the conditions so that this innate wisdom can manifest. It's like a gardener who doesn't create the flowers, but prepares the soil, plants the seeds, and eliminates the weeds, trusting the natural intelligence of life to do the rest. One of the most powerful tools for this work is the attitude that Jung called non-judgmental attention. It's about observing your thoughts, emotions, and reactions without labeling them as good or bad, without completely identifying with them but also rejecting them. It is an in-between space, a third position from which you can contemplate both the light and the darkness itself without getting stuck in either. This conscious attention creates the space necessary for the transcendent function to emerge. It's as if you're saying to every part of yourself, "I see you are there and I accept you as part of me, but you are not all that I am." This attitude of inclusion without identification is deeply liberating and healing. Jung discovered that the deepest wounds often have a transpersonal dimension. They are not just the result of personal traumas, but connect with what he called archetypal suffering, universal patterns of human pain that transcend individual experiences. Recognizing this broader dimension of your wounds can be deeply healing, as it helps you see that you are not alone in your suffering. This perspective radically changes our relationship with pain. Instead of seeing suffering as an obstacle to overcome or eliminate as quickly as possible, the Jungian view recognizes it as a potential path to transformation. It's not about glorifying pain, but about finding its meaning, about allowing it to teach you what you need to learn to evolve spiritually. The darkest moments of your life, seen from this perspective, can be opportunities for spiritual initiation. Jung intensely studied initiation rituals in different cultures and found that they all share a similar structure. Separation from the known, transition through trials and challenges, and reincorporation into a new, more complete identity. Your personal crises often follow this same pattern. Do you remember a time in your life when you felt like everything you thought you knew was falling apart? A time in which he felt completely lost, as if he had descended into a bottomless abyss. Jung would say that you were experiencing what alchemists called anigrid, or the dark night of the soul, a necessary phase of dissolution before you can rebuild yourself on a deeper, more integrated level. These periods of darkness, far from being signs of spiritual failure, are often signs that you are in a profound process of transformation. These are times when old structures that no longer serve you are being dismantled to make way for something new. The problem arises when, out of fear, you try to cling to the old or prematurely escape the darkness, thus interrupting the natural process of psychic metamorphosis. For Jung, depression was often a sign that the psyche was attempting a profound reorganization. He felt that sufferers were being called down into the depths, not as a punishment, but as an invitation to discover a hidden treasure. It is what he, inspired by mythology, called the descent into the underworld, a necessary journey to recover lost parts of the soul. This descent should not be confused with negative rumination or delight in suffering. It is an active process, a conscious exploration of the darkness with the light of awareness. Jung found that many spiritual traditions include practices for this descent. The dark night of the Christian mystics, the little shamanic death, the Tibetan bardo. They all point to the same truth, that sometimes we need to symbolically die to be reborn into a deeper level of consciousness. One of Jung's greatest contributions to contemporary spirituality was his understanding that the path to wholeness is not linear. It's not about continually shining toward the light, leaving the darkness behind forever. It is more of a spiral cyclical process, where we repeatedly visit the same themes, but each time from a deeper level of understanding. This spiral path is what Jung called the process of individuation, the journey of becoming a complete individual, differentiated from both the collective and your own unconscious conditioning. It is not an end state that you reach once and for all, but a continuous unfolding, a continuous dialogue between consciousness and the unconscious, between light and darkness. Throughout this process, Jung identified certain key archetypes that emerge as guides or challenges. One of the most important is the shadow archetype, which we already mentioned, that part of you that you have repressed or denied. Confronting and integrating the shadow is perhaps the most fundamental spiritual work, according to Jung, because without it you cannot access your authenticity nor your real power. Another crucial archetype is the anima for men or the animus for women, the inner counterpart of the opposite sex, the complementary energy we all carry within. Jung discovered that integrating these energies is essential for psychic wholeness and for establishing authentic relationships with others. When we project our unintegrated spirits onto others, we create emotional dependencies and repeat painful patterns. The inner sage or the wise old man is another fundamental archetype in the Jungian path. It represents the innate wisdom that we all possess, that part of us that already knows what we need to heal and grow. Connecting with this archetype, whether through dreams, meditation, or active imagination, can provide invaluable guidance in times of confusion or crisis. However, Jung warned about the danger of identifying with any of these archetypes. When you believe that you are your inner wise man, for example, and not simply that you are in touch with this energy, you fall into what he called psychic inflation, a state of false ego expansion that can be as dangerous as repression. True integration involves relating to these archetypes from a conscious center, without getting lost in them. The central archetype in Jung's psychology and the ultimate objective of the individuation process is the self, the totality of the psyche, the organizing center that transcends and at the same time includes the ego. Jung saw connections between this archetype and the diverse representations of the divine in different spiritual traditions. Christ, Buddha, Atman, Ut, all point, according to him, to the same fundamental psychic reality. Connecting with oneself is the spiritual experience par excellence in the Jungian view. It is an encounter with something that is simultaneously the most intimate of you and something that infinitely transcends you. It is what mystical traditions have called oneness, enlightenment, or realization, the direct experience of your oneness with the whole. However, Jung was very clear that this experience does not eliminate polarity or suffering. It is not a perpetual state of ecstasy or happiness, but an ever-increasing capacity to contain both light and darkness, both joy and pain, from a center that remains stable through all changes. This is what he called the coincidence oppositorum, the coincidence or union of opposites. This ability to sustain opposites without dissociating or fragmenting is perhaps the clearest sign of spiritual maturity. According to Jung, it is not about solving the mystery of duality, but about living it consciously, allowing the tension between opposites to generate, like two poles that generate an electromagnetic field between them. Now, how does this maturity manifest itself in everyday life? How do you know if you are progressing on this path of individuation and spiritual healing that Jung described? One of the clearest signs is a growing sense of authenticity. You no longer need to pretend to be someone you are not, neither to please others nor to fulfill abstract ideals. It can be genuine, with its lights and shadows, without being dominated by shame or fear of rejection. Another sign is an increasing ability to relate to others without excessive projections. You no longer idealize them, nor demonize them. He doesn't look for lost parts of himself in them. You can see them as they are, different from you and yet deeply connected with you in that shared humanity that Jung called the collective unconscious. Creativity is another natural fruit of the individuation process. I don't necessarily mean artistic creativity, although that can flourish, but there is a creative attitude towards life, the ability to respond to each situation from a fresh, unconditioned place, open to the new. This is what Jung called the transcendent function in action, the psyche's ability to generate new syntheses from apparently irreconcilable elements. A sense of purpose and meaning is perhaps the most profound indicator of spiritual progress. According to Jung, it is not that you find definitive answers to the big questions, but that you develop a living relationship with the mystery. Your life feels meaningful not because you have certainties, but because you are committed to the very process of seeking, of exploring, of becoming who you really are. For Jung, this commitment to the process of individuation itself was a spiritual act. He believed that each individual who does this work not only heals themselves, but contributes to the healing of the world. In his own words, "Be the change you want to see in the world," is not just an inspiring slogan, but an accurate description of how collective transformation works. This Jungian approach differs radically from many contemporary forms of spirituality that promise instant happiness, perpetual peace, or the elimination of suffering. Jung did not offer these shortcuts. Your path is demanding, sometimes painful, always challenging. But what it promises is something much more valuable: a life lived in all its depth and breadth, an existence that honors both light and dark, that embraces the totality of what it means to be human. In a world obsessed with superficial positivity, quick fixes, and instantaneous transformations, Jung's message resonates with a refreshing authenticity. It reminds us that true spirituality does not consist in escaping our humanity, but in completely immersing ourselves in it with all its contrasts and contradictions. Are you willing to accept this challenge? Are you ready to embark on this journey of self-knowledge and transformation? To look at both your light and your darkness with equal respect and attention. It is not a path for everyone. It requires courage, patience, and deep honesty with yourself. But for those who hear the call, as Jung himself wrote, your vision will only become clear when you can look into your own heart. Whoever looks outside dreams. Whoever looks inside wakes up. This awakening is what I offer you today. Not a set of techniques or beliefs, but an invitation to undertake your own inner journey, to discover for yourself the light that exists in your darkness, the wisdom that lives in your wounds, the wholeness that you already are and that waits to be recognized. If you've connected with this message, if you feel like there's something here that resonates deeply with you, don't let it go. This could be one of those synchronic moments that Jung described, a turning point in his path. And perhaps, without knowing it, you have been searching for just that. An approach to spirituality that honors both your light and your darkness, that allows you to be fully human and at the same time touched by the divine. What will you do with this invitation? The decision, as always, is yours. But remember Jung's words. I know better what I don't know, and I respect this mystery. Perhaps the first step is simply to recognize that you do not have all the answers, that there are aspects of yourself that still wait to be discovered, and that in this humility, in this openness to the unknown, your spiritual healing is already beginning. If this message touched something for you, please share it with anyone you think could benefit from it. Sometimes a simple conversation, a shared video, can be the catalyst someone needs to begin their own journey of self-discovery and healing. And if you want to delve deeper into these ideas, I invite you to join our community. In the comments, you can share your own experiences with Jungian psychology, your questions, your insights. This is not a monologue, but the beginning of a dialogue between you and your unconscious, between you and other seekers, between all of us. And this great mystery that Jung spent his life exploring. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos, where we will continue exploring these and other transformative ideas. Together, we can create a space where psychological depth and authentic spirituality find a home in a world so in need of both. Thank you for your attention, for your openness, and for allowing me to be part of your path. Remember that the brightest light often arises from the deepest darkness, and that in the heart of your wounds may be waiting the most precious gift of all, your own authentic, complete being, reconciled with yourself and the universe. See you in the next video. Until then, as Jung would say, be the light that illuminates your own darkness, because that precisely there is where true spiritual healing begins.